The laughter that escaped her lips surprised even herself, a sound so foreign in the sterile confines of the coffee shop that several patrons turned to look. Lillian Davis hadn't genuinely laughed in what felt like years, and here she was, nearly spitting out her $5 latte because of a ridiculous dad joke from the disheveled man who had accidentally bumped into her table. "I'm so sorry about that," he said, awkwardly dabbing at the small puddle of coffee with a handful of napkins. "I swear I'm usually more coordinated, but my daughter says I have the grace of a newborn giraffe." Lillian waved away his apology. "It's fine, really, no harm done." The man, tall with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, nodded toward the empty chair across from her. "Mind if I sit? All the other tables are taken and my coffee's getting cold." Something about his unassuming demeanor made Lillian nod, despite her usual preference for solitude. "Sure, I'm Zach, by the way, Zach Thomas." He extended a hand across the table. His grip was firm but gentle, his palms slightly calloused. "Lillian," she replied, deliberately omitting her last name. Being a Davis in the business world meant never knowing if people were genuinely interested in her or just her billions. "So Lillian," Zach said, settling into his chair, "what brings you to this little corner of coffee heaven on a Tuesday morning?" "Work," she answered vaguely, gesturing to her laptop. "You. Just dropped my daughter off at school and needed caffeine before heading to job number 2. He took a sip of his coffee, grimacing slightly. "Though I might need to microwave this now." "Job number 2, Lillian asked, curiosity piqued despite herself. Zach shrugged, a casual movement that couldn't quite mask the weariness behind it. "Yeah, I work construction during the day and bartend a few nights a week. Single dad life isn't cheap, especially when your 8-year-old suddenly decides she needs to take horseback riding lessons." Lillian smiled, finding herself drawn to his candor. "What's her name? Your daughter?" "Mia," he answered, his whole face softening with pride. He pulled out his phone, swiping to a photo of a gap-toothed girl with her father's eyes and a riot of curly hair. "Smartest kid in the 3rd grade, if you ask me, though I might be biased." "She's beautiful," Lillian said, and meant it. "She's my whole world." He tucked the phone away. "So, enough about my chaotic life. What do you do?" Lillian hesitated, her standard vague response hovering on her lips. Instead, she found herself saying, "I'm in finance." "Ah, one of those number wizards," Zach said with an exaggerated bow of his head. "I bow to your superior math skills. I still count on my fingers sometimes." "It's not that impressive," she said, though her company, Davis Financial, managed over $100 billion in assets. "Says you," Zach laughed. "I tried helping Mia with her math homework last week and ended up Googling how to do long division. Embarrassing, right?" Lillian found herself laughing again. "I'm sure you're a great dad regardless of your division skills." "I try," he said, suddenly serious. "Her mom left when she was 2, so it's been just us against the world. We make it work." He glanced at his watch and grimaced. "Speaking of work, I should get going. The construction site waits for no man, especially one who's already late." He stood, gathering his things. "It was nice meeting you, Lillian." "You too," she replied, surprised to find she meant it. "Here," he said, scribbling on a napkin, "in case you ever want to hear more terrible jokes. I've got 1,000,000 of them." He slid the napkin with his phone number toward her with a self-deprecating smile. "No pressure, though." After he left, Lillian stared at the napkin for a long moment before carefully folding it and slipping it into her purse. She had meetings all day with executives who would trip over themselves trying to impress her, yet it was this encounter with a struggling single dad that had somehow made her morning. 3 days later, against her better judgment, she texted him. "What do you call a fish with no eyes?" The response came almost immediately. A FSH classic. "Mia groaned so loud when I told her that one, I think the neighbors heard." Lillian smiled at her phone, ignoring the curious look from her personal assistant. "I was wondering if you might want to grab coffee again sometime," she typed, then deleted it, then typed it again. "I'd love that," came his reply. "Fair warning though, my joke repertoire has expanded, prepare yourself." They met the following Saturday at the same coffee shop. Zach arrived looking slightly less disheveled, his hair damp from a recent shower, wearing a clean flannel shirt that had seen better days. No Mia today, Lillian asked after they'd settled with their drinks. She's at a birthday party, princess-themed. There will be glitter in my apartment for months. Lillian laughed, finding it easier than she could remember in years. The sacrifices of parenthood, speaking of which, Zach said, sliding a small paper bag across the table. Mia insisted I bring this. She made it in art class. Inside was a small, lumpy clay figure painted in vibrant colors. It vaguely resembled a cat if cats had 3 legs and 2 tails. She said it's for Dad's coffee friend, her words, not mine. Zach looked slightly embarrassed. I may have mentioned meeting you. Lillian carefully held the little sculpture, unexpectedly touched. Tell her I love it. They talked for hours that day, moving from coffee to lunch at a nearby diner. Zach told her about growing up in a small town, about meeting Mia's mother in college, about the painful divorce and learning to be both mom and dad to a toddler while working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Lillian shared carefully edited versions of her own life, her parents' early deaths, taking over the family business at 25, the loneliness of being at the top. She omitted the details about exactly how large that business was, or that the family home she mentioned was actually a 20-room estate with ocean views. As weeks turned into months, their coffee dates became dinner dates, and sometimes long walks in the park. Zach introduced her to Mia, who was initially shy but quickly warmed up when Lillian showed genuine interest in her elaborate stories about her stuffed animal collection. Lillian found herself looking forward to their time together with an intensity that both thrilled and terrified her. Zach was unlike anyone she'd ever dated, honest, hardworking, without a hint of pretense. He made her laugh. He made her feel normal, but the lie of omission between them grew larger with each passing day. How could she tell him now that she wasn't just in finance, but was actually Lillian Davis, CEO of Davis Financial, with a personal net worth that landed her on Forbes lists? How could she explain that she owned the building they'd first met in, along with half the block? The question plagued her one evening as they sat on a bench watching Mia chase pigeons in the park. Penny for your thoughts, Zach said, nudging her gently with his shoulder. I'm not sure they're worth that much, she replied with a forced smile. Everything about you is priceless to me, he said simply, taking her hand. The sincerity in his voice made her heart ache. Zach, there's something I need to tell you. Before she could continue, Mia came running back, breathless with excitement. Dad, can Lillian come to my school play? I'm going to be a tree, a talking tree. Zach looked at Lillian, a question in his eyes. It's next Friday, no pressure if you're busy with work. I'd love to come, Lillian said, her confession momentarily postponed. The elementary school auditorium was packed with parents clutching programs and smartphones when Lillian arrived the following Friday. She had left work early, changing from her usual designer suit into jeans and a sweater that she hoped wouldn't stand out too much. She spotted Zach in the 3rd row, saving her a seat with his jacket. The smile that lit up his face when he saw her made her heart flip in her chest. You made it, he said, standing to give her a quick kiss. I wouldn't miss it, she replied, settling beside him. How's the star performer? Nervous but excited. She made me check her tree costume 5 times this morning to make sure the branches were secure. The lights dimmed, and the principal gave a brief introduction before the curtain rose on a slightly wobbly forest scene. Mia stood proudly stage left, her small body encased in brown cardboard with green construction paper leaves attached to her arms. When it was her turn, she delivered her lines with such enthusiasm that several leaves detached and fluttered to the stage floor. Zach laughed softly beside Lillian, his eyes never leaving his daughter. That's my girl, he whispered, and the pride in his voice made Lillian's throat tight with emotion. After the show, Mia ran to them, still in her partially denuded tree costume. Did you see me? Did you hear my lines? I was the loudest tree. You were amazing, Lillian said, accepting the girl's fierce hug. The very best tree I've ever seen. Can we get ice cream to celebrate? Mia asked, looking hopefully between her father and Lillian. Zach hesitated. It's a school night, kiddo. And I have to work the late shift at O'Malley's tonight. Please, Dad, just one scoop, Lillian stepped in. How about I take you both for ice cream, my treat? You don't have to do that, Zach said quietly. I want to, she insisted, to celebrate our star performer. At the ice cream shop, Mia devoured a chocolate sundae while regaling them with backstage stories. When she excused herself to the bathroom, Zach turned to Lillian. "Thank you for this," he said softly. "Having you here tonight, it meant a lot to both of us." "I'm glad I came," she replied honestly. "Zach, about what I wanted to tell you the other day, Dad. Look what I got," Mia interrupted, returning with a small toy from the vending machine by the restrooms. The moment passed, and soon they were saying goodbye in the parking lot. Zach had to rush to his bartending job, and Mia was staying with a neighbor for the evening. "I'll call you tomorrow," Zach promised, giving Lillian a quick kiss before hustling Mia into their ancient Honda. Lillian watched them drive away, then got into her own car, a modest sedan she'd purchased specifically for these outings, leaving her usual luxury vehicles at home. The next morning, Lillian woke to a text from Zach. "Mia can't stop talking about last night. Thanks for making it special. Dinner at my place tonight. I make a mean spaghetti." She smiled, typing back her acceptance. Maybe tonight would be the night she'd finally tell him the truth. Zach's apartment was small but tidy, located in a working-class neighborhood far from Lillian's waterfront penthouse. She parked her sedan a block away and walked, carrying a bag with a bottle of wine she'd carefully selected good enough to be a nice gift, not so expensive that it would raise questions. Mia answered the door, bouncing with excitement. "Lillian, Dad's in the kitchen. He burned the garlic bread, but he made more, and I set the table all by myself." The apartment smelled of tomato sauce and garlic. Zach stood at the small stove, stirring a pot with focused concentration. He wore faded jeans and a t-shirt with a small tear near the collar, his feet bare on the linoleum floor. "Hey you," he said, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Dinner's almost ready. I hope you're hungry." "Starving," she replied, setting the wine on the counter and moving to help him. They ate at the small kitchen table, Mia chattering about school and friends, Zach occasionally interjecting with jokes that made his daughter groan and Lillian laugh. It was simple. Perfect. After dinner, Mia insisted on showing Lillian her room, proudly displaying her collection of rocks, feathers, and the museum of artwork taped to her walls. "And this is where I keep all my special things," Mia said, carefully opening a shoebox decorated with stickers. Inside were various treasures: a smooth stone, a movie ticket stub, a pressed flower, and Lillian noticed with surprise the clay figure Mia had made for her months ago. "I thought you gave this to me," Lillian said, gently lifting the misshapen cat. Mia nodded solemnly. "I did. But Dad said you travel a lot for work, so I'm keeping it safe here until you have a special place for it, so it won't get lonely." Lillian felt her heart constrict. "That's very thoughtful of you." "Dad says we have to be thoughtful of people we love," Mia replied simply, before moving on to show Lillian her latest school art project. Later, after Mia had gone to bed, Zach and Lillian sat on the small balcony, sharing the wine she'd brought. "Your daughter is incredible," Lillian said softly. "She likes you. A lot." Zach looked at her, his expression serious in the dim light. "So do I, in case that wasn't clear." "Zach, you don't have to say it back," he interrupted. "I know this is complicated. I'm a package deal with an 8-year-old, working 2 jobs to make rent. You're successful, independent. I'm not exactly what most women are looking for." "You're exactly what I've been looking for," Lillian said firmly. "But there's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you months ago." Before she could continue, Zach's phone rang, the special ringtone he'd set for Mia's school and caregivers. His face immediately tensed as he answered. "Mrs. Peterson." "Is everything?" He listened, his expression shifting from concern to alarm. "We'll be right there." "What's wrong?" Lillian asked as he hung up. "It's Mrs. Peterson's husband. Heart attack. Ambulance is there, but she needs to go to the hospital. I have to pick up Mia." He was already grabbing his keys and wallet. "I'm sorry to cut the evening short." "I'll come with you," Lillian said without hesitation. They drove in tense silence to the neighbor's apartment, where they found a frightened Mia and a distraught Mrs. Peterson waiting with a paramedic team. "Will Mr. Peterson be okay?" Mia asked in a small voice as they drove home. "I hope so, sweetheart," Zach answered, reaching back to squeeze her hand. "The doctors will take good care of him." Back at Zach's apartment, it took stories, reassurances, and finally Zach lying beside her until Mia fell asleep again. When he returned to the living room, Lillian was still there, having made tea and cleaned the dinner dishes. "You didn't have to stay," he said, collapsing onto the couch beside her. "It's late." "Of course I stayed," she replied, handing him a mug of tea. "Are you okay?" He nodded wearily. "The Petersons have been our neighbors since Mia was a baby. They're like family." He rubbed his face. "I should see if they need anything. Hospital bills, help around the house, though I'm not sure what I can do. Things are tight this month with Mia's school fees and the car repair last week." Lillian took a deep breath. "Zach, I can help." He smiled tiredly. "I appreciate that, but it's not your responsibility." "I want to help," she insisted, "and I can, more than you know." Something in her tone made him look at her more carefully. "What do you mean? Remember that thing I've been trying to tell you?" She set down her mug, her hands suddenly shaky. "I haven't been entirely honest about my job. I don't just work in finance. I own Davis Financial." He stared at her blankly. "The investment firm?" "Yes, the one with the headquarters downtown, the skyscraper with the D on top," she nodded, watching his expression carefully. "So you're what, an executive there?" "I'm the CEO and the owner. My full name is Lillian Davis." Zach set his mug down slowly. "As in, billionaire Lillian Davis, the one who was on the cover of Forbes last year." "Yes." The word hung between them, heavy with implications. "I should have told you sooner, but I liked being just Lillian with you. Not Lillian Davis, not the CEO, not the billionaire, just me." Zach was silent for a long moment, processing. "All this time," he finally said, "you've been slumming it with us, drinking coffee in that little shop, eating at diners, coming to a school play in a folding chair." "It wasn't like that," she protested. "I wasn't slumming it, I was just being myself, the real me. The real you owns a corporation. The real you probably has houses all over the world. The real you could buy and sell my entire apartment building without blinking." His voice wasn't angry, just stunned. "Yes," she admitted, "but that's not who I am when I'm with you and Mia. With you, I'm just Lillian." "Why tell me now?" "Because I love you," she said simply. "Both of you. And I'm tired of hiding a huge part of my life. I want you to know all of me, not just the parts I've been showing you." Zach stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. "I can't compete with your world, Lillian. I can't give you what you're used to." "I don't want what I'm used to," she said, moving to stand beside him. "I want this, you, Mia, spaghetti dinners and school plays and waking up next to someone who sees me, not my bank account." He turned to face her, his expression troubled. "What about Mia? What happens when she finds out her dad's girlfriend could buy her entire school? How do I explain to her why we still live in this apartment when you have a mansion somewhere?" "We'll figure it out together," Lillian promised. "If you want to, that is." The silence stretched between them, taut with uncertainty. "I need some time to think," Zach finally said. "This is a lot to process." Lillian nodded, fighting back tears. "I understand, I'll go." She left her number, her real number, not the secondary line she'd been using, and walked out of the apartment with her heart in her throat. For 3 days, she heard nothing. She threw herself into work, attending meetings and reviewing contracts with mechanical efficiency while her mind constantly returned to Zach and Mia. Had she ruined everything? Should she have kept her secret longer? Forever? On the 4th day, as she sat in her office overlooking the city, her assistant announced a visitor. "There's a Mr. Thomas here to see you," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "He doesn't have an appointment." Lillian's heart leaped. "Send him in, please." Zach entered her office, his eyes widening slightly as he took in the expansive space with its floor-to-ceiling windows and minimal, expensive furnishings. "Nice place," he said, attempting a smile. "The view's not bad either." "Zach," she said, rising from her desk, "I'm glad you came." "Mia made me," he replied, some of his usual humor returning. "She said, and I quote, 'Dad, if you like Lillian and Lillian likes you, why are you being stupid?'" He shrugged. "Kid has a point." "Smart girl," Lillian said cautiously. "And do you, like me, I mean, still?" Zach moved closer, his expression serious. "I've spent 3 days thinking about everything, about the fact that you lied to me, or at least didn't tell me the whole truth, about what it means for Mia and me if we let you into our lives, about whether I can handle being with someone so far out of my league. You're not, he held up a hand to stop her. Let me finish. I thought about all of that, and then I realized something else. I thought about how you listen to Mia's stories like they're the most important things you've ever heard. How you never make me feel less than because I work construction. How you laugh at my terrible jokes. He took her hand. The money, the company, that's not who you are, that's what you have. Who you are is the woman I fell in love with. Relief flooded through Lillian, bringing tears to her eyes. I was so afraid I'd lost you. Not a chance, Zach said, pulling her into his arms, though I do have one condition, anything. You have to let me pay when we go out sometimes. My pride can only bend so far. Lillian laughed through her tears. Deal. Oh, and one more thing, he added, reaching into his pocket. Mia made this for you. He handed her a folded piece of paper. Inside was a childish drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands, a tall one labeled Dad, a small one with wild curls labeled Me, and a medium one with a smile that took up half its face labeled Lillian. Above them, in careful block letters, were the words, My family. She wants you to put it on your refrigerator, Zach explained. She says all families have kid art on their refrigerators. It's a rule. I'll hang it up as soon as I get home, Lillian promised, carefully folding the drawing and tucking it into her suit jacket close to her heart. 6 months later, Zach and Mia moved into Lillian's penthouse. The transition wasn't without challenges. Mia missed her friends in the old neighborhood, and Zach initially felt out of place among the luxury. But they made compromises. Lillian set up a college fund for Mia, but agreed to let Zach continue working his construction job, which he loved despite no longer needing the income. They kept his apartment for a while, a familiar place to visit when the glitz of Lillian's world became overwhelming. Gradually, they created a new normal. Mia's room in the penthouse was filled with her treasures and toys, including the ever-growing museum on her walls. The sleek refrigerator in Lillian's designer kitchen became covered with drawings, school papers, and family photos. The penthouse, once a showcase of modern design, became a home filled with laughter and love. A year to the day after they first met, Zach proposed on the balcony of the penthouse, with Mia acting as his assistant, holding the ring box and giggling uncontrollably. I know you could have anyone, he said, kneeling before Lillian, but for some reason you chose the guy with the bad jokes and the amazing daughter. Will you marry us, both of us? Both of you, Lillian agreed through happy tears. Always both of you. They married in a simple ceremony, with Mia as the flower girl and self-appointed best daughter. Lillian wore a designer gown that cost more than Zach's old apartment, but Zach wore his father's suit, carefully altered to fit him. It was a perfect blend of their worlds. After the honeymoon, during which Mia stayed with her grandparents, Zach's parents, who had finally warmed to Lillian after initial skepticism, they settled into life as a family. Lillian cut back her work hours to spend more time at home. Zach started a small construction company of his own, specializing in affordable housing projects that Lillian's foundation quietly helped fund. 5 years after that fateful coffee shop meeting, they welcomed twins, a boy and a girl, who inherited their father's easy smile and their mother's determination. Mia, now a teenager, was the proudest big sister imaginable, already planning the museums she would help them create on their bedroom walls. On quiet evenings, when the twins were asleep and Mia was doing homework, Zach and Lillian would sometimes sit on their balcony, looking out at the city lights, marveling at the unlikely path that had brought them together. Do you ever regret it? Zach asked one such evening, his arm around his wife. Marrying down, as your board members probably put it, Lillian laughed. I married up in every way that matters. She leaned into his embrace. Besides, I got quite the package deal, one amazing husband and one extraordinary daughter with 2 bonus babies thrown in. I'd say I'm the wealthiest woman in the world. Well, Zach said with a grin, you technically are the wealthiest woman in the world, according to Forbes. Second wealthiest, actually, and that's not what I meant. I know, he said, pressing a kiss to her temple. But you have to admit, it's a pretty good joke, the billionaire who fell for a poor dad's terrible humor. The best joke ever, Lillian agreed, turning to kiss him properly. And the best punchline. As the city glittered below them and their children slept peacefully inside, Lillian Davis Thomas counted her true fortune not in dollars or assets, but in the love of the family she had found when she least expected it, all because of a spilled coffee and a dad joke that made her laugh for the first time in years.